fading light of evening on November the 13th, an Andover CC of the Queen's flight touched down at Seawell Airport. On board was a most distinguished visitor to Barbados, His Royal Highness Prince Phillip, Duke of Edinburgh. The Governor and the Premier of Barbados welcomed the royal visitor and presented him to many of the people of Barbados. The people gave the Duke a real Caribbean welcome. He had concluded his visit to South America, and everybody wanted to greet him personally. When the airport ceremonies were over, he left Seawell for the Royal Yacht Britannia at berth in the new Bridgetown Harbour. Britannia first called at Bridgetown in 1955, on that occasion bringing to our shores the young and beautiful Princess Margaret, sister of the Queen. Again, in March of this year, the ship dropped anchor in the harbour when Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, arrived for a short stay. The internationally famous police band provided a musical background for a big civic reception when the Mayor and the citizens of the city of Bridgetown were hosts of the Duke of Edinburgh. Bridgetown had its first mayor and council in March 1959. Before that time, its affairs were managed by a churchwarden and vestry. Prince Phillip met the aldermen and councillors. In his address, the Mayor spoke of the enduring bond that existed between the mother country and Barbados. A Queen's College student, born on the same day as Prince Charles, presented a model ship, and the Duke received the freedom of the city. Afterwards, the royal party motored to the College of Arts and Science of the University of the West Indies. The college was opened in 1963 to provide university education for students from Barbados and neighboring Caribbean territories. 185 students are enrolled. Temporary buildings are at present used, but permanent headquarters will soon be established on a new site overlooking the city. The University College of the West Indies, incorporated by Royal Charter in 1949, became in 1962 a degree-granting institution in its own right. Last year, 2 colleges were opened at St. Augustine in Trinidad and this one in Barbados. The Governor presented the Pro-Vice-Chancellor. Her Royal Highness Princess Alice, Countess of Athlone, is of course the Chancellor. Then His Royal Highness met the Vice Dean and the President of the Guild of Undergraduates. The Duke talked with many of the students, reminding them that they were pioneers and bear a heavy responsibility for setting a good example. And then, in triumphant procession to Trafalgar Square for a visit to the Houses of Legislature. His Royal Highness was escorted to the Senate chamber, where he was to address a joint session of the two houses.
For over 300 years, you have practiced and cherished that same free parliamentary system which has been the pride and strength of the British people. This is one of the oldest parliaments in the Commonwealth today, but because it has been under constant development and adapted to the spirit of the times, it combines the traditions and continuity of age with all the vigor and practical activity of the present.
The visit to the legislature had been accompanied by all the pomp and tradition of democratic government, and a tremendous popular acclamation was given to him as he left. But the highlight of the visit was undoubtedly the opening of the new Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Already some of the wards are occupied by patients transferred from the old hospital. When the new one goes into full use, the staff will be increased to over 1,000, and the recurrent expenditure on hospital services will rise by about $1 million. Nurses, ward and kitchen maids, and representatives of the St. John's Ambulance Brigade lined each side of the Duke's path into the new building. Inside, a large invited audience were assembled to take part in the inaugural ceremony. A ceremony which will mean so much to the people of Barbados, who, through no fault of their own, need the care and attention which can only be given in a modern, well-equipped hospital like the Queen Elizabeth. The Minister of Health was the first speaker. He traced the history of the hospital project from its inception to the present day and invited His Royal Highness to perform the opening ceremony. The Duke reminded his audience that this was no longer an engineering project. It had become a hospital with its attendant responsibilities and opportunities for the care of the sick. Every single patient would be an individual human being, each with his own problems and worries. Then the commemorative plaque, made from mahogany from the old hospital site, was unveiled and the new hospital was officially opened. The medical superintendent presented members of the staff. It was the end of a brief but memorable visit to a friendly people steeped in the traditions of affection and loyalty to the throne and to the person of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Everybody had delighted in welcoming His Royal Highness. Goodbye, Duke. Come again soon.